Welcome to The Elixir, a podcast delivering a cure for common ideas about self-care. I am Amanda Mizen, founder of North Medical Spa and your host. Join me as I chat with friends and founders, healers and doctors, big thinkers and risk takers about innovative and misunderstood ideas in the world of self-care.
Every thought you have releases a chemical concoction in our body.
People think that it just happens. You're supposed to age, and this is how I age. That's not at all true. You're aging at the rate you are because of the choices you made.
What's really helpful is recalibration of your nervous system on a moment-by-moment basis. We're really interested in what we call micro strategies.
Our chats will be off the cuff and uncensored. We will go beyond the surface to uncover the secrets, the elixir to feeling great in your own skin.
What if you stop? What if you slow down?
Let's ask that 20% what they did right.
These topics are meant to make you think, to provide new ideas, unique perspectives, and to break down barriers in taking care of the whole self. If you're feeling burnt out or you are experiencing burnout, you likely don't have the ability to even be aware of needing to take the step.
Imagine if you're able to store a resource for yourself that hasn't aged for the past 2, 5, 10 years.
Get to know us more by visiting northmedicalspa.com. Thanks for listening to The Elixir. We hope you feel great today. So I'm here today with Kashif Khan, owner and founder and CEO of the DNA company. And we're going to be talking about what you do, how you do it, and what the difference is between your company and the others that are out there right now.
It's a pleasure. Awesome
Thank you
to be
for
here.
coming.
Thank you.
So I'd love to dig into this new buzzword that we're hearing. Even, another interview I did said it out loud, Epigenetics.
Sure.
I'd love to talk about that word, what it means, and how it's connected to your company.
Sure. So genetics is what version of what gene do you have, right? Here's your genome. Here's your human instruction manual. It's literally in each one of your cells. Epigenetics is how does that express? Meaning, what did I eat? How did I exercise? That may sort of turn the dials on your genes. So you can literally make a gene that doesn't function properly function better based on what you're doing.
Huh.
That's the epigenetics.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm enlightened. So tell me a bit about your company. The DNA company, why did you start it?
So the thing you just asked me is exactly what sort of triggered our movement, which is genetics. This thing that's inside of us is meant to be, the cure-all, be-all, end-all type thing when it comes to healthcare, but it wasn't doing that.
Right.
It was this underwhelming, you got an 80% chance of Alzheimer's, good luck.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the question was, if I'm telling you that you have 80% chance of whatever, I'm also saying that 20% didn't get it with the exact same genetics. So the difference was the thing we just talked about, the environment, nutrition, lifestyle choices. So the path we took was to research healthy people, meaning let's ask that 20% what they did right. Why with the same bad news of you got an 80% chance of something, they didn't get it. So the difference was, what did they eat? How did they exercise? And a big one, what were their environmental exposures, especially when it comes to women and hormone issues?
Yeah, it shows up all the time for us, especially in skin health.
Right.
And it's, I turning 40 this year. It is it's coming to the forefront. And I think there's a lot more information we need.
I would say of all of what we deal with, the place that needs the most help is female hormone health. The experience right now sucks, straight out. It's horrible.
Yes.
You're supposed to have problems with your hormones. That's the answer medically. Yeah. Now let's just manage it. Whereas if you understood it genetically, you know exactly why your estrogen is too high, testosterone are too high, your estrogen it may be toxic, for example, which could cause inflammation, why there's infertility issues, why certain chemicals are causing hormone disruption. It's so black and white versus the gray it's made out to seem. You can heal all of that stuff.
With so much confidence.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So is there a personal connection for you to the company? Was there something that you were healing?
Yeah, I actually don't come from the industry. I was sick.
Okay.
So I had crazy eczema. I couldn't open my left eye at one point. It was sealed shut from eczema. My psoriasis was so bad that when I would bend my hands, I'd bleed through to my knuckles. It was nasty. The worst part was migraines. Debilitating. My business partner would have to drive me home. I couldn't function. I just have to sleep. So, as the medical experience is, there's a doctor for this, there's a pill for this, there's a scan for this, and they're all treated as separate siloed problems. And it wasn't until I sort of gave up on why am I only managing where I'm at as opposed to
layers
getting
upon layers upon layers of medicine treating the thing that treats the thing that treats
exactly.
the thing. Yeah.
And I was not being told by anybody why any of these things were happening.
Right.
And to me, that was a big, this is broken.
Arguably that's Western medicine.
That is. So we do a really good job of, acute emergencies. You broke your arm, terminal condition, rush to the hospital, they'll help you.
Yes.
We are blessed that we have that. The problem is that same toolkit is applied to chronic disease, which is not the way you should look at chronic disease, and aging, for example. Aging and chronic disease, you weren't born with diabetes or cholesterol problems, or it happened later because you did the wrong thing for too long. Right? It's not like breaking your arm. So in learning that through functional medicine, I found that the answers was in my genome, because there's literally a page of my genetic manual that's missing. There's a very specific genetic function to clear toxins from the blood. I don't have it because my ancestors didn't need it. So now in the same office where me and my business partner were working, he didn't have a problem. Meanwhile, the fumes from the manufacturing company downstairs were causing the eczema, the psoriasis, the migraines, because I couldn't clear them.
That is wild.
Yeah. And
that is wild. So how did you even get there? What were the steps to even, this isn't going to the corner store and picking up some Tylenol. This is a way bigger discovery.
So I did have to dive deep.
Yeah.
And it started with, why is nobody telling me why? Only how to mask it. Then it was, let's go to functional medicine, which is root cause. Let's figure out the system failure as opposed to the symptom masking. And it was in that I realized that the genome is what directs every process. So just self-learning, self-taught, and that's what happens when things fail you. You pursue and you go find your own answer.
Yeah. And
when I found genetics, I was still not sort of happy with the results, because it gave me that propensity. You got an 80% chance of this, 60%, but it still didn't tell you what to do. An 80% chance of anxiety is just giving you, more anxiety because you don't know why or what to do about it. And that's when I dove deeper and found some scientists here in Toronto that were working on what's called functional genomics.
Okay.
Meaning what problem do you have, but why is it happening?
Right.
Why do we get diseases? Why do we age? How do we slow aging down? I literally handed the keys to my business partner, and I said, I found what I got to work on.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that complete shift.
Literally just,
Yeah, that whole, I can imagine that just even the mind-body connection of that, of the why, understanding the why, the relief, that in and of itself is a health movement.
Yeah.
A personal sigh of relief, I can imagine, because it's
huge.
just there's no why in a lot of what we're feeling, especially women. I mean, that's my own experience shining through, but the why behind, menstrual pain or hormone issues or even skin laxity or sleep.
Right. Sleep is a huge one, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I really want to talk about this with you. I'm really excited about this because I have actually tried your sleep capsules.
Right.
And I'm telling you, it is like someone put a weighted blanket on you and gave you 14 cups of chamomile and all this. I think the difference between it is it's not, you know what, actually, I'm going to let you go on this because we've touched on it. I don't want to steal the show. But let's talk about the melatonin, serotonin. Idea.
What we've learned, and this is a really good example of that sort of 80% versus 20% genetics versus functional genomics, not the what, but the why. Why is it happening?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of scientists, a lot of research out there trying to crack the code on sleep genetically. They're looking for a sleep gene, but that's not the way the body works. We already know what drives your sleep patterns. So we don't need to go figure that out. We just now need to pair the genes that instruct each step. Genes are instructions. They tell your body what to do. So just tie them to what we already know. And that's what we did in our research. So we learned that falling asleep, I can't fall asleep. That's one problem. I can't stay asleep. There's a whole other problem. I sleep through the night, but I wake up feeling like I didn't get good quality sleep. Genetically, those are three very different things. But we treat it all as one blanket. You can't sleep, take melatonin. Right?
Right. Gummies.
Yes.
Drugstore lollipops. There's literally everything out there.
There's a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And yes, it will knock you out because melatonin is a hormone that puts you to sleep. You don't need a pill. There's other ways you can do it. You can amber glow of a fire, like red blue light blocker glasses. There's things that ancestrally we did that triggers melatonin production, dimming the lights, Serotonin, however, is your wake-up hormone or wake-up chemical. It's a neurochemical, which also regulates your mood. What triggers it is meant to be sunlight. So when that first glimmer of sun pops up, serotonin starts to get produced. And you're supposed to not kind of wake up but stay awake. Meaning you can wake up several times during the night, but you need to get back to sleep.
Yes.
Right? And everyone sleeps in cycles. It's not a straight 8 hours. It's 1.5 hour up and down like this through the night.
Felt like 8 hours after those pills. I'm not gonna lie.
So then what's happening with the pills? We've understood that there's some people that sleep for an hour and a half, a second hour and a half. And then after that 3 hours, if there's any stimulus, like the temperature's off, there's a smell, hubby pulls on the blanket and wakes you up, whatever happens, it's hard to get back to sleep.
Yes.
Because that same stimulus, your brain confuses as it's morning. It's that sunlight stimulus for some people. Remember, it's not the same for everybody.
Yeah.
And the whole point of genetics is to be precise and personalized. Like, what do I need? That's why we built the pills that you've been taking, because we've understood it's not about knocking you out. It's about keeping you asleep.
Yeah.
What's actually going on when you're in that state? Let's keep you there.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're getting deep, restful sleep. You get vivid, crazy dreams. Your brain's getting the rest it needs. Body's detoxifying. And you feel amazing. That's the whole point.
Yeah. They are really,
Yeah.
I'm a skeptic. I'm actually like, I'm not a supplement taker. So I'd love to chat more about maybe the not so specific. Actually, you know what? Let's rewind a little bit. Let's talk about the process. What does it look like as a client coming to the DNA company? How do I even start?
So people can go to the website, but we also work with a lot of clinics, and that's primarily what we do, mostly functional medicine clinics, where people are already looking for the root cause. We also want to work with people that think the way we think, right? So it's a test tube. You literally saliva sample into a tube, takes 2 minutes. That then gets shipped back to us, to our lab. Our lab extracts the DNA from the saliva and then sequences it. So this is where there's the big difference between, well, aren't there a lot of companies that do this already?
Well, you
right?
see, I'm getting fed on it. Now that I know, the internet knows that I'm talking to you today, and I've been fed all this stuff. So I'd love to know the difference.
So that's the key, is anybody, you can go buy a genetic sequencing machine, put it in your basement today. It will come with reports built in. You don't need to do anything other than put your logo on it, right? The difference is interpretation. What does it mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And let me give you an example. I'll use myself as a guinea pig. So dopamine. If you pull out a standard generic report, it will tell you that you are an addict because of certain dopamine levels. That's the answer. You have an addictive behavior. What we've understood is there's a gene that binds dopamine. It's called DRD2. And some people like myself that have the low version of it don't bind enough. So when it comes to pleasure and experience, they feel it, or pleasure and reward, the experience is down here. There's another gene, and this is where it stops. You have to look at how the body works, not just gene by gene by gene. That's not how the body works.
It's the connection piece.
Yes, the connection.
Yeah.
So there's another gene called MAO, which breaks the dopamine down because you eventually need to get back to normal. You're out of that pleasure or reward experience. There's another gene called COMT, which clears the broken up metabolite, which also clears hormones, which clears other things. I have the lowest dopamine and I have the fastest MAO and the fastest COMT possible, which means I feel it down here and it lasts that long. So yes, that is wiring for addiction, but I'm not an addict.
Right.
So is my genetic test wrong? Or are they not understanding human behavior, which is I'm an addict if I go down the pleasure route because I didn't get reward. Because dopamine does both.
Yes.
Right? So I unintentionally became entrepreneurial, and now whatever I did yesterday isn't good enough, and I'm taking bigger risks and doing things and building things, and so I'm not an addict. But there's also a third option, depression. Because if I don't go down the pleasure route, and if I don't go down the reward route, and I'm not getting stimulus, I'm going to be depressed because I just don't experience what normal people experience from the normal world.
Wow. I mean, I would argue that entrepreneurship is kind of addictive.
Yeah.
Like that constant creation, that high. It's like
it's that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Right. You need more and more and more. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? We didn't plan for this question, so if you want to steer off, that's okay.
Sure.
But just looking at, I feel like everyone I know right now is sort of getting diagnosed with ADHD.
Right.
It is the new, big blanket discovery.
Yeah.
But I feel like what you just said, maybe, is the thing, why.
So we've looked at ADHD from multiple angles, and anything that comes from in the mental health bucket or mood and behavior bucket is never as definitive as the labels.
Right.
Right? Anxiety, ADHD, depression. It's not one thing.
Yeah.
There's many ways to get there. What I just described is one of the ways.
Yeah.
That entrepreneurial reward-seeking behavior, that looks good. That looks good. And you're jumping onto the next thing because you can't help yourself.
Yeah.
Right? But the opposite is also true. Imagine the person that has the maximum dopamine binding and the slow, they're experiencing pleasure to such a high degree that they just don't care. Everything's good. Right?
Wild.
Yeah. So they walk into a meeting, take all their notes. Here's my 10 action items. They leave, and the next thing they're on some blog website looking up fashion because they just feel like they're done. They feel satisfied. They don't have that sense of, but give them the thing that gives them that elevated pleasure and they'll binge. They're lost on it. They're 8 hours. They're gone. Right? Wow. So both of those are called ADHD. I just gave you a list of 10 things. You didn't even start. Yeah, I did. I kind of did it. No, you'd have no focus, no attention. There's 7 or 8 different ways I can tell you how ADHD, the thing that we call it ADHD, happens. None of them need a pill. None of them. And even, in fact, put it in a different context, it's a superpower. It's not a problem.
I would agree. The people who I know who have it are the smartest people I know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it's the feeling of wanting to chase, but not being able to chase it. It's like I'm not an expert. I haven't done any research on ADHD, but not to get too heavy into it, but I think it's one of those things where they're getting in their own way, but maybe it's genetics getting in the way.
It starts with genetics and then their context. Wherever they're at, whatever they're doing determines what it looks like.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. So let's go back to a client journey, a client experience. So we've talked about saliva.
Sure.
But how would you...
Right.
I mean, there's different levels. We kind of went off track.
Yeah, we didn't answer the other half of that.
That's okay. Yeah, let's go back there because I think it's really important to understand if I'm a client coming to the DNA company, there's probably levels of commitment that I can take with you. I know that sometimes you manage people's health entirely.
Yes.
Or it's just, not just, but like creating a system for someone to manage on their own.
So from my own experience, genetics fails people because it's hard to use. Getting a report telling you have DRD2 version TT.
No idea.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you got a whole list and a book full of these things. What do I do with that information? Versus anxiety. Low, medium, high risk. If you're high, here's why. Here's the science if you want to geek out a little bit. But most importantly, what do you do about it? Here's the recommendations for forming habits, what supplements you take, what food should you be eating.
Oh, so it's not just a supplement piece. You're looking at whole health.
There's 3 main buckets. Your genes are your propensity, your risk. Where are you doing well, where you're not doing well. Your environment, nutrition, and lifestyle choices are what crank the dial to like a problem.
Got it.
That the 80% versus the 20%.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
You weren't born with Alzheimer's, but you're being told that you might have it later in life. Because 80% of people make the wrong choices. And the wrong is not the same for all of us. I'll give you a simple example. There's some people we have to tell them that cardiovascular exercise is the reason they have a cardiovascular disease, which is completely counterintuitive.
Wait, can you say more about that? I don't know.
So using that as an example, this is like paints a picture of personalization. Because you would think the best thing I could do to have a healthy heart is go run every day.
Yeah.
For some people, that's true. When you look at marathon runners that are kind of older, you'll see there's 2 or 3 of them that look amazing, but most of them are like haggardly with sort of skin, sagging white hair.
Yeah.
They aged faster.
Yeah.
Because they're putting themselves through what's called oxidative stress. So your cells take in oxygen and nutrition to create energy. They're all doing that all day long. In that process, some people can't clear the oxidant, which is created. So the irony is that the oxygen that gives you life is slowly aging you and killing you because every time you take it in, it creates an oxidant, right? So you're supposed to get rid of that. Genetically, some people don't do so well there because they didn't need to. Their ancestors didn't run around, right?
Yeah. I don't know. People run marathons. I'm like, you don't have to run, right? Like you don't have to run at all if you don't want to. So, yeah.
So now if you are that person, which you would be surprised what a large chunk of the population is in that bucket. It's not 2 or 3%, it's like 30%. That's one. Second is we can determine of your cardiovascular system what quality hardware you have. Literally, the arteries around your heart, which is where most heart disease happens, cholesterol, blockage, calcification is usually in the arteries. If you have low quality like cellular structure, it's much more prone to inflammation. You wonder why you can see, grandma smoking till she's 100, no problem, versus somebody dropping dead of a heart attack at 50. They have different equipment.
Yeah.
Right? We're doing the same thing with different equipment. So now, if you are the person that can't clear the oxidation, and you have bad quality hardware here, which we can determine genetically, that oxidation is going to cause inflammation here. Your body's response to inflammation here is to actually send cholesterol as a hormone to reduce the inflammation.
This is mind blowing to me.
Yeah. So now what happens is doctor says you have a cholesterol problem.
Okay.
Start taking a pill to reduce the thing that's keeping you alive is being suppressed with a pill. You get stuck in that loop for the rest, and then you have a label, you have a disease, cholesterolemia, heart problem, versus the root cause is you don't clear oxidants well and you're prone to inflammation. So let's deal with both of those and the disease is gone.
Wild.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can imagine the problems and the options and the solutions being endless at your company. I mean, if we're looking at genetic makeup, we're looking at problems. Do you, as a company, sort of silo into different buckets that you focus on? Do you have, categories that you specialize in? Otherwise, you'd be researching until...
And I keep not answering your question. So that's
okay. I mean, we can talk forever. I'm so excited to learn about this. Yeah.
That's the answer. The answer is, so now that the sort of data has been extracted, our AI, we built an artificial intelligence platform to interpret. So our scientists interpret, but that's expensive.
Yes.
Right? So we said, how do we make this available to everybody? We sat with our scientists for a year and a half and just picked every single thought out of their brains and put it into this AI, which then populates the reports. And the reports speak to the problems. So when you log in, you get a portal. It kind of looks like Netflix. You're drilling in and out of tiles. It speaks to anxiety, ADHD, depression, carb diet, keto diet, like the things that you're actually thinking about versus this version of this gene. Now go figure out what that means. Mm-hmm. So you can self-navigate through 6 systems, which is sleep, we've talked about, cardiovascular health, diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, all that stuff, diet, nutrition. So how do I actually metabolize macronutrients, micronutrients? How does my brain perceive when I get full, when I'm satisfied in my mouth? Am I a binger? Am I grazing at the pantry? We know all this stuff about you genetically, right? Hormones and fitness. So how does my body develop? I want to lose 10 pounds. Well, how do I do that? Not as how does people do that?
Yeah.
Right? The difference between hormones defining body type and then you pursuing the wrong goal, as an example. Right? And that also ties in so much to hair, skin, and all the stuff that people come to you for also. So then there's cellular health, so innate sort of immunity and ability to fight inflammation, which is the root cause of disease.
That's where it all starts.
That's where it all starts, yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the biggest report is mood and behavior. Everything about how you're wired up here and how you think, what drives your personality, how you perceive the world around you. So those 6 are filled with a bunch of micro reports, like we've been talking about, anxiety, ADHD, etc. You can self-navigate. You can learn yourself, and the recommendations are built right in. The other thing we did is we understand that some people want to dive a little deeper, and it may not be about anxiety. It may not be, they want to know about their genetics.
Yeah.
So we built what we call a GeneCast, which is a personalized podcast. Same portal, you log in, and our AI curates these audio files that are relevant to you, to your genome. So you can dive into all the versions of all the genes you have and listen whenever at your leisure to learn more about how you're built and how you're wired. And between these 2 things, you can be sort of the optimal version of yourself. That's the whole point.
I love it. I picture this like transformer moment, pure health optimization. Yeah. Wow. And so can we talk a bit about how the supplement piece comes in? Because it is a significant part of your business.
It's a big part of it. It's so why supplements are important. And I'm not talking about, go to Shoppers Drug Mart and pull something off the shelf. It's about managing genetic expression. That's the very first thing we talked about.
Yeah.
So what is genetic expression? You have a bad version of a gene that points to something. We've been researching, so we actually built a compounding pharmacy in the middle of our office.
I've been.
Yeah, you've seen it, right? I've seen
it. It's wild. Yeah. It's so cool. Yeah.
So we did that so we can literally custom compound and put sort of nutraceuticals together to manage people's genetic expression. So we go look at sort of published studies and research archives and figure out what ingredient made a gene work harder or not as hard, depending on what the problem is. We then tested it with patients. And we've learned that it's not about here's a supplement like, some vitamin that does whatever. You have to highly personalize, like you said about sleep. It's not about knocking you out with melatonin. It's how do I get you into the genetic problem of I can't stay asleep. Right? I need deep quality sleep, which is where recovery happens. So that's what we did. We built all these formulas after going through literally thousands of people and learning that deal with all the big problems that people have at the root cause level.
Right.
And typically, Do you deal with fibromyalgia? Do you deal with, it's not about masking that. It's about this central hub that causes all of these problems. Estrogen dominance causes fibromyalgia, bad menopause, breast cancer, ovarian cancer. We're not trying to treat each individual thing.
Yeah.
We're saying that if you treat the hub, all these spokes go away.
This is, more people need to know about this, yeah?
For sure. That's what we...
Hello! This is...
Yeah, we agree with you.
Everything. Again, didn't plan for it, but can we maybe connect the skin health piece to this? Because
Sure.
I think some of the frequent flyer situations that come into North Medical, cystic hormonal acne, specifically later in age, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation for women of color all the time, not knowing how to manage, and then also needing to be really careful treating Black and Asian skin.
Right.
And then also, what would be another one? I guess skin laxity, just sort of how we're falling.
Right. So all of that stuff, we can look at the why.
Yes.
So acne, as an example. We take for granted that men are testosterone, women are estrogen.
Yeah.
That's not at all true. Men and women go through the exact same cycle. Men just do it daily and women do it monthly, which is progesterone converts to testosterone, converts to estrogen. Then you convert it into metabolite and you get rid of it. Men do that every day. Right?
That's a lot.
Yeah, menstrual cycle, right? So it's daily.
Menstrual cycle, yeah. Jesus Christ. Everything's created for you guys.
So in that, it's not that straightforward. Each step you can do at different levels. So that progesterone converting to testosterone may happen really super fast and there's this big pool of testosterone. The conversion into estrogen may happen super slow. And so some women that battle acne, it's important to deal with the topical, let's deal with the emergency. But if we look deep inside, it's driven by DHT, which is the sort of manly man version of testosterone. So some women go from progesterone to testosterone and then convert it into DHT instead of estrogen, or a mixed, some kind of blend. That DHT is what's creating the acne to begin with, right? So now if you, again, take the right supplement that turns that dial down, you're not converting it to DHT anymore. You may not have the ripped six-pack anymore, which is also a byproduct of DHT.
Okay.
It may be easier to put on fat, right? So you'll notice the trend that the women that have this issue, typically they'll be a more slender, smaller hips, smaller feminine features, more like a Kendall Jenner as opposed to a Kim Kardashian look, right?
Kim Kardashian's paid for, let's be honest. But paid for those curves.
Okay. So that's what androgenization or testosterone looks like.
Okay.
Right? So now, and so you can deal with it on the inside, but literally taking the right supplements to turn that dial down.
Interesting. So yeah, I think our approach always to skincare is whole person. We look at inside out. We are big in referring out. We do, massive transformations with skincare and skin health in all areas and all problems, but really having an option to refer to that really gets as specific as you can be with what's going on with your body, and not just a blanket statement is a gift to the world of skincare, I think, and women's health, really. And
this is where genetics, just again, that goes back to that key word, like your question, how are we different? Interpretation.
Yes.
How do you interpret it for the problem people actually have, as opposed to telling people this is what this gene does?
Yeah.
Right? I have this, I need to fix this. I don't care what the gene does. So how do you then go into DNA and figure out a way to fix that? That's what we do differently. So, and then going back to your other question about aging, sagging skin, all that stuff. So it goes back to the same thing we said. This is why I say there's a hub that solves so many spokes of problems. It's again about oxidation, rapid aging. So if you don't understand how you age, there's one thing to age, meaning your numbers are going up. Then there's aging, like you can visually see this person's falling apart. Yes, right? Especially after the last 2 years. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So that can be controlled. People think that it just happens. You're supposed to age, and this is how I age. That's not at all true. You're aging at the rate you are because of the choices you made. You can slow that down. What about the genetic piece where you actually do look like your mother or your father, and you can see that pattern repeating itself? I guess it's the same. It's the same thing answer. Because they didn't have access to this technology. So mother, father, whoever you look like and whatever path you're following, just make better choices. Right? It's like, just do that. Yeah. It's not that easy though. Yeah. So literally, and this is a big, that not easy thing was a big thing for us, because in our clinical practice, we were telling people, here's what's wrong and here's what you need to do. That's what we're good at.
Yes.
What we found was, did they actually do it? Right? That's the challenge. So we hired Dr. BJ Fogg for a year straight. So he runs the Stanford University Behavior Change Lab.
Okay.
He wrote a book called Tiny Habits about behavior change. His students actually built Instagram, by the way, based on his course. So they went to Stanford, learned behavior change, and they said, we think we can do something with it. So they built Instagram.
Insane.
Yeah. So we hired him for a year.
So this man is the source of all of our problems.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The dopamine
And
hit
the cure for it.
Yeah.
Checks both boxes.
So we gave him the report, say, here's what's wrong, here's what we recommend. How do people actually do these things? How do we get them to stick and comply and actually adopt the habit? So he put all of that in there. So when you read the reports, when you log into your portal, tells you what's going on, tells you what we recommend, but it also tells you, here's how you adopt some easy habits. Here's some habits you might consider removing. Here's how you scale some habits. Here's how you take it from home into the office. Here's how you get your family to support the habit. So things like that that you don't think of that are so important to actually get the change. You can know, knowledge is one thing, but to do it, most people don't do it.
Yeah, it's the repetition and consistency. That's where the results lie, right?
Right.
So yeah, same with skincare.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you're doing the testing and someone comes in, what if you do discover a predisposition to something awful? How do you manage that? How do you I don't want to know if I'm getting Alzheimer's.
So
I'd rather just
yeah.
maybe I do know. Maybe I do want to know. I guess if there's a solution to fix it. I don't know.
It's funny that you said Alzheimer's, because that's the number one thing that people say they don't want to know.
Yeah.
Because the belief is you can't do anything about it.
Right.
I'd rather enjoy my life than have anxiety worrying about that thing that's coming. That's what people believe. Because they've misunderstood what disease is. That it happens. That you have this switch that's been turned on and it's coming. That's not at all what chronic disease is. Chronic disease is you have weak genes that put you at risk for something, but if you do things right, there's absolutely no reason it should happen. It takes years and years, literally decades plus, to create a chronic condition. This is why most people get sick in their 50s. You don't get Alzheimer's at 25. Why? Because it takes 50 years of the wrong choices, wrong diet. Health Canada just rebranded Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes.
Stop it.
Yeah. And
what does that even mean?
Nobody talks about it because there's certain people that don't want people to know that you don't need to wait to take a pill. If you eat the right foods, you're not getting it. Health Canada had to admit this because the research was so powerful. They call it type 3 diabetes because it's based on insulin, sugar. Why is it so prevalent? Because we don't eat the way our ancestors used to eat.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
Wow.
Right? So the truth is you want to know if there's something you can do about it.
The power is knowing.
It's knowing and then making the changes. Then if it happens, it was your choice for it to happen because you knew what to do. You were given that information, right? So that's how we think about genetics.
My mind, that's crazy. I don't even know how to process all of this information. It's just like a whole new world that I haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had conversations with you in the past, but this is epic. I'm going to need to sit for a minute and breathe through this one. Thank you for coming.
No,
thank you for
pleasure.
sharing. I feel like we're going to have another conversation in the future sometime soon.
For sure, yeah.
Maybe we can do something with North Medical, get everyone sleeping and glowing and feeling good. Where can people find you?
So our website is thednacompany.com.
Okay.
Welcome to come there. Email me directly. You'll find me through the website. So thednacompany.com, ton of information there. If you need anything more, just connect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Amazing. Thanks, Kash.